Just 1 week removed from landing the number one point guard in the NCAA transfer portal, West Virginia has followed that up by landing one of the transfer portal's top big men in the nation. Let's go. What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Jordan Cruz back here with the Country Roads webcast. And before I get into this video, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder. If you would do us a favor, hit that like button, give us a thumbs up on this video. It'll really help not only its performance, but future videos performances here on the channel as well. And if you're a WVU fan and you haven't already, be sure hit that subscribe button. Helps us and it helps you, as it helps get more of this Mountaineer sports content out to Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, let's get into it. All right, man. Oh, man. What an addition for the West Virginia Mountaineers. And how about Bob Huggins? Has he learned the transfer portal or what? Absolutely killing it right now. Shout out to Jay Kuntz as well. That really helps with West Virginia's recruiting. And West Virginia doing an outstanding job in the transfer portal. As I said, they had one of the top transfer portal classes already early in the game with the additions of Jose Perez and Omar Silverio. But then they've added the nation's top point guard in the transfer portal in Kerr Kriisa and one of the top players in the transfer portal period now with Jesse Edwards, arguably the top center in the transfer portal. There's an argument to be made about Hunter Dickinson as well, but Jesse Edwards certainly up there. His numbers are inarguable. I'm going to play some of his highlights from his time at Syracuse while I'll read through this article here on ESPN.com from Jonathan Giovanni. Let me pull these up really quick. Share this screen with you. It was time for a fresh start, Edwards said. I needed a new environment to challenge myself in, and I think West Virginia is just that. I've met some great people on my visit here, and the campus looks amazing. This team could really be something special. The 6'11" Edwards averaged 15 points, 10 rebounds, nearly 3 blocks, and over 1 steal a game in 32 minutes for Syracuse last season. Named to the All-ACC third team, as well as the All-ACC defensive team as a redshirt junior. 1 year of eligibility remaining, but he has 95 games of collegiate experience under his belt. One of the most experienced players in the portal. Picked West Virginia over Kansas, Gonzaga, Virginia Tech, Texas Tech, Michigan, and many others. So very hot commodity in the transfer portal, and West Virginia really beat out some big name schools to land this big prospect in Jesse Edwards, who hopefully will be a big part of their game next season, where he will come to play for Hall of Fame coach Bob Huggins. But coming from Syracuse, we know he's already played for one Hall of Fame coach in Jim Boeheim, and he added some comments on those Hall of Fame coaches. He said it's a huge honor to be able to learn from and get to know not one, but 2 legendary coaches. And then, as I mentioned, with the addition of Kerr Kriisa, the top point guard in the transfer portal, Kriisa was an international player that had experience playing against some of the biggest names that you see now in the professional game. Well, guess what? Jesse Edwards does as well. Jesse Edwards is a native of Amsterdam. He led the Dutch national team at the FIBA Eurobasket last summer, and he went head-to-heads with guys like Lauri Markkanen and Nikola Jokic, who we know is a former NBA MVP. So he has great experience not only in college, but also playing against some professionals as well. And as the highlights end, I'll transition you guys back to sharing the screen with the article here as I close it out on ESPN. Edwards said in regards to facing some of those professionals, it was a great learning experience going into last season and a lot of fun. Spearheaded by the Country Roads Trust Collective, founded by Forbes-listed billionaire, Arizona Diamondbacks owner Ken Kendrick, and former Mountaineers athletic director Oliver Luck, West Virginia has significantly increased its activity in the NIL space, reeling in one of the nation's top transfer portal players in point guard Kerr Kriisa from Arizona. Edwards said that the NIL factor at West Virginia was, quote-unquote, a bonus, but not the primary factor in his decision-making process. I mostly wanted to have a fresh start and a new challenge, Edwards said. NIL isn't what I'm playing for. I didn't really want to get into this, but it doesn't seem that Syracuse as an organization is into that. I'm not really sure what their plan is or what the school's idea is behind it. For me, it was something that they couldn't offer in that way. So kind of an interesting quote there in regards to Syracuse's NIL and what's going on over there. Not too sure what exactly he means by that, but I'm glad to see, and one thing that we can talk about is since West Virginia changed athletic directors and that switched hands and Ren Baker's been at the helm, it seems like West Virginia's Country Roads Trust NIL collective has really taken off. We've heard great things said by Pat McAfee and Pac-Man Jones live on the Pat McAfee show in regards to West Virginia having money and Ren Baker being a big part of the reason why they believe success is coming. And it wasn't long after that exact statement on the Pat McAfee show, we saw the commitment of Kerr Kriisa. Now we see the commitment of Jesse Edwards, 2 of the nation's top transfer portal players. So I definitely think it goes to show West Virginia is making moves in the NIL game, and Country Roads Trust is doing its part to keep West Virginia relevant nationally. And this is an excellent pickup cannot be understated just how big this is for West Virginia. They add one of the nation's top point guards in the portal and now one of the nation's top centers as well. Let's take a look at Jesse Edwards' announcement here to commit to the Mountaineers on his social media page. All right, so as you can see here, posted the picture of him in the West Virginia jersey from his official visit this past weekend. And the quote I loved, country roads, mountains, and Huggins truck, #committed. And that's funny to me just because Kerr Kriisa, if you remember in his article there on ESPN, he mentioned Bob Huggins' truck as well. So maybe Bob Huggins' truck is quietly a little recruiting pitch for West Virginia or something. I don't know. But it certainly seems the past two commits, these two players in the transfer portal, two of the nation's top transfer portal players, certainly love Bob Huggins' truck, as both mentioned it following their commitments. But there is Jesse Edwards on Twitter. And if you want to follow him, Mountaineer Nation, you can see his Twitter handle right here at Jesse_Edwards14. And hopefully he'll be a force for the Mountaineers. And in regards to his game and what you can expect to see from Jesse Edwards, how about this? If you need a little bit of something to get excited about, this should really get you hype. I got a couple of tweets here from a couple members of the West Virginia media that really got me excited when I was trying to learn about Jesse Edwards. All right, first up, how about this one from Skylar Callahan over at Mountaineers Now? He tweets, how big of a pickup would Jesse Edwards be for WVU? Which I can now restate to, how big of a pickup is Jesse Edwards for WVU now that we know he is committed to the Mountaineers for the upcoming season? Jesse Edwards averaged 14.5 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks per game last year. No player in the history of WVU basketball has averaged over 10 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 blocks per game, going back to 1985 when blocks became a stat. So there you go. His stat line from last season would be one that no West Virginia basketball player has ever had before. So that's something to get you excited. And how about a preview of some of those stat lines that he had last season to show just what games you maybe can expect from Jesse Edwards on nights when he is really on his A game. And for that information, we go to this tweet from Ethan Bach from WV Sports Now, as well as the Portal Report. Some of these stat lines from Jesse Edwards are indeed video game-like, as he states in the tweet. You can see him here on the screen, but I'll read through these four that he has posted in the tweet. 27 points, 20 rebounds, 5 steals, and 2 blocks. That's one game. And then in another game, 18 points, 16 rebounds, 2 steals, and 4 blocks. Moving on to another game, 22 points, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 7 blocks. And then finally, 20 points, 11 rebounds, 5 blocks. So some absolutely insane stat lines there from Jesse Edwards. And I would love to see some more of these in Morgantown next season for the West Virginia Mountaineers as he takes over as the team's starting center. And certainly this has me very excited, as I'm sure it does you, seeing these stat lines and the potential of what this could mean. And let's not forget, he's going to have the nation's #1 point guard, dishing him assists and throwing him alley-oops, which we know he's very capable of, finishing from the highlights we saw earlier. So absolutely incredible pickup here for West Virginia. Let's take a look at the transfer portal tracker here on the Country Roads webcast as we update the West Virginia transfer list yet again here, moving through this offseason, heading into next year's West Virginia men's basketball season. And as you can see here, I've shared this a couple of times. This is the transfer portal tracker I'm using here on the Country Roads webcast to kind of keep up with West Virginia's transfers out and transfers in throughout the offseason. Couple transfers out, as we know, Jamel King and Josiah Davis. Transfers in to this point had been 3 guards, Jose Perez, Omar Silverio, and of course the nation's #1 point guard referenced in this video a couple of times already, Kerr Kriisa. And then, of course, now you can add one of the top players in the entire transfer portal overall and one of the nation's top centers in Jesse Edwards from Syracuse. West Virginia really putting together an absolutely impressive transfer portal class right now, ranking as one of the nation's best, depending on which service you look at. I believe Evan Mia has it as the #2 transfer portal class nationally, right behind Florida currently. So West Virginia has really figured out the transfer portal in a big, bad way. I think last season we were talking about Bob Huggins doing a better job and really landing some pieces that would potentially get West Virginia back to the NCAA tournament. We saw that become a fact, but now he is really flexing his muscles with the transfers that he's bringing in this offseason. The #1 point guard, one of the top centers, and one of the top transfer portal players overall in Jesse Edwards. This transfer portal class for the West Virginia Mountaineers really shaping up nicely. And guess what? It's not over quite yet. West Virginia is hosting a couple players on a visit. One, a guard from Iowa State and Caleb Grill. great three-point shooter. He's on campus now as I'm recording this video, actually. And then next week, a forward from Pitt, John Hughley, who West Virginia was in on big time during the high school recruiting process and was down to one of his finalists. West Virginia is still trying to add him as well. So don't be surprised if the West Virginia Mountaineers still add a couple more transfers to this list as we continue to shape up the 2023-2024 West Virginia men's basketball roster, which looks like it has the potential to be the most talented in quite some time. Let's take a look at how it stands right now with this article from WV Sports Now. All right, and as you can see over on WVSportsNow.com, this also from Ethan Bach, West Virginia's basketball roster following Jesse Edwards' commitment. As you can see, the guards on the roster currently, Kobe Johnson, Kirk Risa coming in, Jose Perez, Omar Silverio, the ones I just referenced there in the transfer update. And then you still have Joe Toussaint and Seth Wilson on roster. Joe Toussaint using that 5th year of eligibility to return to the Mountaineers, as is Trey Mitchell, who you see here listed with the other forwards, currently Josiah Harris and Pat Sumnick. As far as the bigs go, we know James Okonkwo and Mo Wagee will be back this season, and we now know that we're adding Syracuse transfer Jesse Edwards. Jimmy Bell is the wild card here. We're going to see if he's going to opt in for his final year of basketball eligibility. We also know, if you've been following on the Country Roads webcast, I put out a video about it in the past, that he is trying his hand at the football side during spring practice, so he could potentially opt into football and not be on the roster. But as of now, kind of as you see an asterisk on the roster is Jimmy Bell's spot. So West Virginia, if Jimmy Bell does decide to return, they actually have no scholarships remaining, so they would have to kind of figure something out if they want to add a couple of these players that they have visiting in the future as they're in on some more of these transfers. But we'll see what happens. Right now, that's the West Virginia roster as it stands following the big addition of Jesse Edwards. Like I said, a couple more transfers on a visiting Caleb Grill and John Hughley, and this roster will continue to develop, and we will update you as it does do so throughout this offseason here on the Country Roads webcast. But there you have it, Mountaineer Nation. I'm absolutely ecstatic right now. Can't believe West Virginia landed both Jesse Edwards and Kirk Ariza. Feels almost surreal, the job that West Virginia is doing in the transfer portal right now. Absolutely excellent. One of the top jobs in the nation, and West Virginia is shaping up one of the best West Virginia men's basketball rosters we've seen in quite some time, I think, and the 2023-2024 season could indeed be something special, in my opinion. But I would love to hear your all's opinion. What do you think about this addition of Jesse Edwards and the job West Virginia basketball is doing in the transfer portal thus far throughout the offseason? However you're feeling there, be sure and let us know down in the comments. We really appreciate the interaction as we continue to try and grow the Country Roads webcast community throughout Mountaineer Nation. Having said that, as always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.